What's going on, guys? So today's video is going to hopefully be a short one. I wanted to look into this FSR 3 frame generation issues that I had with Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. So essentially, I reviewed this game on all 4 of my GPUs, and on my 3080 Ti and 6800 XT, when turning frame generation on, I was experiencing these weird hitches. It wasn't fluid. It was almost like someone is slapping your hand lightly as you're moving the camera around. It was very strange. And I even mentioned on that video, both those videos, that I didn't experience this on the 7900 XTX or 4090. As a matter of fact, I said that it ran great. I praised it. But then on the other 2 GPUs, it didn't run great. So what's going on? I wanted to look into this because it just didn't sound right. And by the way, I tried everything. I tried borderless, full screen. I tried turning VSync on, VSync off. It didn't really do anything. And before we do that, though, I do want to touch on something. There's this narrative going around on Reddit that I personally think it's baseless. There's no evidence for this, saying that, oh, it's only happening on NVIDIA GPUs. They're having issues and AMD GPUs are not. That's not how FSR works. But besides, I didn't have issues on my 4090 and 7900 XTX, but then I had issues on the 3080 Ti and 6800 XT. So clearly there's got to be something else, right? But that's not how FSR works anyway. It's not designed to take advantage of particular hardware, like, say, Intel XCSSs. If it was, AMD would be advertising it and shouting it from the rooftops. Trust me. So, if anything, it maybe gets a few frames extra on AMD GPUs. Although, I might test this out of curiosity. Before we go on, though, let's look at the settings and see what we're working with and go on from there. So, what I've done here, I'm playing the game at 3440 by 1440. That's how I normally game. And I've essentially put it to the unobtainium settings because I want the FPS to be around 60. And that's the only way to do it. And FSR Super Resolution has to be on in order for us to enable frame generation, right? That's how it works. So let's look at it without frame generation. And we're getting around 50 something FPS with some dips in these heavy areas. Okay, so frame generation would be a great thing to turn on here, right? Even though we're a little bit below 60, it's still, we stand to benefit from it. So why don't we try that? Okay, so we've turned frame generation on now, and let's look around. We're getting around 100 FPS, and it's doing it again. Essentially, it moves smooth, and then all of a sudden it's like it jitters, almost like someone is smacking your hand repeatedly for like a second, right? It's just, I don't know if it's coming through. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's quite distracting. It's almost like the image is out of sync. It's really strange. Okay, it's almost like it like jitters. You can actually even see it on the frame times, right? And it shouldn't really be like that. On with my remedy then, and this may not be a surprise to some of you, but what was causing the issues for me was having MSI Afterburner enabled, or Rivet Tuner Statistic Server to be precise. Essentially, that was causing some issues with syncing, it seems, or affecting the frame time somehow to make it inconsistent. Right, so right now it's much smoother, even though it may not look it because it's a 60 FPS recording on footage that's much above 60, right? We're around 190 FPS. Now we're also running with the unobtainium preset as well, so we're kind of dipping below 60 FPS as you've seen in the beginning. It can even drop down as like mid 40s in some rare cases, and that will translate to the generated frames as well, obviously, but it's much smoother now. As a matter of fact, what I think we should do is we should try to change the preset and measure frame rate with the NVIDIA performance overlay. If we were to go from unobtainium to ultra, we should have a lot more frames to work with. And what we're going to do is we'll just use the NVIDIA metrics overlay here. So we're getting around 110 FPS here. Okay, so this is me from editing the footage. The NVIDIA overlay metrics actually didn't come through. You have to enable a setting for that to show up, and I didn't know I hadn't, so it's not in the recording. So when I make a reference to it, we was getting around 110 FPS or so, or 120, something like that. Back to the video. And yeah, this actually feels a lot smoother. Because you guys got to remember also, in case you didn't know, some of you might, but maybe some of you don't, is that even though we were getting 55 to 60 FPS without generating frames, quote unquote fake frames, when you turn frame generation on, you're actually working with a little bit less base of a frame rate, because generating frames takes processing power. There's an overhead and a cost, a GPU cost to it. So even though you may be at 60 FPS when you turn the frame generation on, by the time you turn that frame generation on, you may be working with 55 FPS or maybe even less, depending on how powerful your GPU is. So, but yeah, this actually feels very smooth right now. Like I'm panning the camera and there's no hitching or anything like that. It's very consistent. So yeah, guys, if you're running into any issues with frame generation, FSR 3 frame generation in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, it's good to just disable the Rivet Tuner Statistics Server, MSI Afterburner. I wouldn't have thought that it would be an issue, mainly because, you know, it's not an issue with DLSS 3 frame generation, so I wouldn't have thought that it would be. But it sounds like it is for now. Maybe they'll fix it. So I will keep that in mind going forward. Whenever I look into FSR 3, I will make sure that if I do have any issues with it, to disable MSI Afterburner. But this also explains why some people weren't having an issue. Probably because they weren't using Rivet Tuner Statistics Server. I assume that most people probably don't. So obviously I do, because, you know, the stuff I do in the channel, and I also use it to kind of tune and dial settings and this and that. So you know, it's a good setting to use. And obviously there's alternatives out there. There's the AMD overlay. NVIDIA has their own. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought, right? But that was the point of this video, to kind of dive into it and, you know, get the conversation going. So thanks to people posting on Reddit their experiences and kind of pointing things out. And that's why I wanted to make this video, to sort of give an update on my 2 previous videos, because I had people in the comments section saying that, you know, they weren't experiencing the same issue, and this kind of explains it. Anyway, though, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, subscribe if you want. Either way, I do appreciate you watching the video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.